The final round, Wednesday, June 3. It's win or go home. This is where true quality rises to the top. CVM TV will thrill you with a doubleheader from the Anthony Spalding Sports Complex. Jamaica Premier League champions Portmore United look to take a league and cup double, but face off against a Montego Bay United team hungry for silverware in the feature at 8:30 p.m. In the curtain raiser at 6 p.m, home team Arnett Gardens welcome a Jamaica Defence Force team whose military prowess saw them pull off a coup against Premier League giants Cavalier and march into the quarterfinals. Will David slay Goliath? Or will the mighty prevail? It's a tasty Popeye's Challenge Cup quarterfinal doubleheader live on CVM TV. Tier. The 7 JPL teams are invited and are ranked based on their finish in the current season, as they will not enter the competition until after being eliminated from the JPL playoffs. The JFC team seedings are determined based on their rankings in the league as at May 2. Teams will battle it out over 6 rounds to determine the winner. So how does it work? Round 1, the play-in, will feature 14 teams, all from the Jamaica Football Championship. Pot 1 will have 5th to 10th place teams, and Pot 2 will have teams seeded 11th to 18th. Round 2 will have 8 JFC teams, the 7 Round 1 winners, and the 4th ranked JFC team. Pot 1 will have the top 4 ranked JFC teams, and Pot 2 will have the next 4 remaining teams. Round 3 features 6 JFC teams, 4 winners from Round 2, and the 2nd and 3rd place teams, and 6 JPL teams will enter the competition, excluding the JPL champion. Pot 1 will have the top 3 ranked from both JPL and JFC, and Pot 2 will have the others. The next round is the quarterfinals, featuring the 6 winners from Round 3, the JPL champion, and the 1st place from the JFC. It will be a random draw with no pots. Teams then proceed to the semi-finals and the final. Each team will get prize money based on how far they advance in the tournament. A total of $4.75 million in prize money will be paid out, with the winning team taking home $1 million. There's also a $50,000 purse for the top goal scorer and the winning coach. Get ready for the newest and boldest club football competition in Jamaica. This is David versus Goliath. This is the Popeyes Challenge Cup on CVM TV.
Tune in to Lead Story, weekdays at 6 p.m. Hosted by Jody Ann Quarry.
Internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winford Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Hey, what's up, one?
Hi, I am Candy Pang.
What a guan?
What a guan?
That a guan, pa.
What a guan?
What a guan?
What a guan! Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on
Thanks for joining us for CVM News at Noon. It's Wednesday, June 3, 2026. I'm Amoy Harriet. Up first this afternoon, the policeman implicated in the fatal shooting of Latoya Bulgin has now been formally charged with murder. Constable Andrew Wilson appeared before the St. James Parish Court in relation to the on-duty shooting incident that occurred in Granville, St. James on May 17. Now, following investigative actions by the Independent Commission of Investigations, INDECOM, a file was submitted to the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions for a ruling. The ruling was received by INDECOM on May 29 that Constable Wilson should be charged for the offense of murder. INDECOM says its investigation relied heavily on video evidence collected shortly after the incident. The constable remains behind bars after bail was denied and is scheduled to return to court on June 16. The Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica is taking Flow and Digicel to task over what it describes as a poor and unacceptable customer service during major changes to their subscription television channel lineups last year. The regulator says both companies failed to provide customers with clear, timely and effective notice of the changes, leaving many subscribers unable to properly access the impact on their service packages. The Commission has now ordered the telecoms providers to implement stronger communication measures and warned that the breaches could be considered in future license renewals. History remains anchored in Kingston Harbor for the next few days as the world's oldest active aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, continues its final overseas port call before decommissioning. The historic 5-day visit highlights deep maritime alliances and grassroots community projects. Now that's according to the government. Kevin Black has the details.
A major milestone is unfolding in Kingston Harbor with the historic arrival of the USS Nimitz. Commenting on the supercarrier's final regional deployment in Jamaica,
you know, this trip is really about, there's not a better symbol of the cooperation, the security cooperation between the U.S. and Jamaica and our work on maritime security than this incredible ship being here today. You know, it really is part of an overall relationship we have with Jamaica. And it's an honor to be part of this.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, highlighted the strength of diplomacy and international cooperation shown by the visit of the USS Nimitz warship to the Kingston Harbor on its final stop of the Southern Seas 2026 deployment. Now, during the latest post-cabinet briefing, the minister said this is the 11th iteration of this maritime deployment, adding that the ship embodies a healthy partnership between the U.S. and Jamaica, humanitarianism and readiness to provide disaster relief in times of crisis.
Diplomacy is embodied in many ways: economic, health, sports, education, and among the most impactful and possibly quite present and relevant nowadays are defense diplomacy and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief. So while the vessel is a warship, it is also very much a vessel of peace, which has the capacity to deliver water and food supplies and to provide humanitarian assistance and disaster relief at very short notice in the event of a disaster, and has done so over its lifetime. It is an impressive engineering feat, and that groups of Jamaicans and particularly young people will have and are having the opportunity to see this capacity up front, up close, and to actively consider future careers in this context is another aspect to this welcomed opportunity.
Now, the government's decision to implement part of a 16% increase in public passenger vehicle fares on the same day it was announced is drawing criticism from consumer advocates. CEO of Consumers Intervention of Jamaica, Michael Diamond, says commuters were not given adequate notice and many are now uncertain about what they should be paying.
agree.
It's time now for a break, but stay with us. More when we come back.
Every day starts with care. Care that's always close. Supermed Family of Pharmacies is where you go for everything you need. From your morning routine to life's biggest moments. Supermed Family of Pharmacies is always by your side. Whether it's prescriptions or household essentials, trust the care that's close to home. Super happy, super healthy, Supermed.
The internationally acclaimed On Stage with Winfred Williams.
At a new time, Saturdays at 8 p.m. on CVM TV.
So much more than entertainment.
Popeye's Challenge Cup rolls on into the quarterfinal round Wednesday, June 3. It's win or go home. This is where true quality rises to the top. CVM TV will thrill you with a doubleheader from the Anthony Spalding Sports Complex. Jamaica Premier League champions Portmore United look to take a league and cup double, but face off against a Montego Bay United team hungry for silverware in the feature at 8:30 p.m. In the curtain raiser at 6 p.m, home team Arnett Gardens welcome a Jamaica Defence Force team whose military prowess saw them pull off a coup against Premier League giants Cavalier and march into the quarterfinals. Will David slay Goliath? Or will the mighty prevail? It's a tasty Popeye's Challenge Cup quarterfinal doubleheader live on CVM TV.
Every dream conquered is another dream gained. I land and I fly again like a jet plane. Headed straight in your direction. 'Cause I'm wiser, one step closer. I'm winning 'cause I work so hard. And the music keeps on playing.
Brilliant. Worth every penny. Holland into a rally.
It's a step over there. He walks past him, and then it's just a bit of magic.
Opening up for a shot for Moises Caicedo. The unthinkable unfolds before our eyes.
Hey, what a one. I am Candy Pang at
What a guan?
What a guan?
That's a guan pa.
What a guan?
What a guan?
What a guan! Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 a.m., 1:30 p.m., and 10 p.m. on CVM TV.
And that's a guan pa. What a guan?
Let's delve deep into the issues. We'll take you beneath the surface.
Greetings and salutations. My name is Orville Higgins, and it's another edition of Fan Central.
Talking to the people at the heart of the top sporting stories. Hear from your favorite sportsmen and women and the administrators who work tirelessly to make it all happen. It's live sports talk.
I've written an entire article.
Yeah.
Looking at all the major issues every Tuesday at 9 p.m. It's Fan Central.
Welcome back back to CVM News at Noon. The government has announced a 6.25% increase in the national minimum wage, moving it to $17,000 per week. But at the same time, public passenger vehicle operators have already begun receiving a 16% fare increase, 8% of which took effect yesterday, June 2. The remaining 8% is scheduled to take effect next month in July. Now, critics argue that while workers are earning slightly more on paper, rising transportation and living costs are leaving many Jamaicans financially worse off. Some economists warn that the country's real economy may be under pressure, but with businesses struggling and ordinary citizens losing purchasing power. We're now joined by economist Janelle McEwen, who's with us on Zoom. Good afternoon, Janelle.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here. Now, the government says the minimum wage increase is intended to help workers cope with the rising costs that we're seeing right now. Does this increase truly improve quality of life, you'd say?
Well, on paper it may seem like that, but when we look at living conditions now, when we look at the prices of groceries, when we look at transportation costs increasing, most of that purchasing power would have been significantly eroded for especially minimum wage workers, because if we should do a calculation for the average individual that is earning minimum wage and what they spend on transportation on a monthly basis without deductions, you'll see that it's approximately $250 to $1,000 more that is in transportation alone that they'll be paying, as it relates to increase probably annually. So it really does not translate to real gains, but because of the rising costs that Hurricane Melissa would have caused, and also with increasing transportation costs now.
So this 16% increase in the fare, what then would be the purchasing power that minimum wage earners would be losing after this increase?
As I said, they'll be losing approximately $250 annually to $1,000. So if we look at that additional $1,000 that will be added to the minimum wage on July 1st, coming July 1st, what we're seeing is that this will almost be completely eroded. There are no real gains if we should do that calculation for that individual who is earning that amount. And what statistics would have shown is that approximately around 25% of the labor force is earning minimum wage or close to minimum wage. So a significant amount of Jamaicans are affected by these increases without any real wages increase that will offset it.
Janelle, many Jamaicans feel that the wages aren't increasing as fast as the cost of living is increasing. Is that concern justified?
Yes, it is justified. We would have seen where Hurricane Melissa, for example, would have caused the economy to slow. We would have also heard the government planning to go to a more a wage structure based on performance, and our economy is not growing in those degrees. The economy would have been slowing down significantly. Hurricane Melissa would have caused the price of many goods and services to rise, transportation. We would have seen last month, though, where inflation would have remained within targeted range, and that was only specifically due to electricity, because we're seeing that transportation costs have been rising, grocery bill has been rising. So yes, it is indeed a cause for concern, because these increases are not proportionate to living conditions. So we see that a lot of people were displaced. Housing costs have risen significantly, even prior to Hurricane Melissa. And now with Hurricane Melissa, we see that it would have risen even more. So yes, it's a great concern, because the wages are not raising proportionately, and what that will do is erode the purchasing power of the little increase that we'll get. For example, like for minimum wage, $1,000. It's not necessarily stating that the average person or low-income earners will get just $1,000, because oftentimes we find that an employer will pay a little bit more, but that little is just a drop in the bucket.
The rising costs that you mentioned earlier, what impact do these costs have on the wider economy?
When we see a rising cost, for example, we see that small businesses will be impacted, because the cost, what will happen is, it's possible that sales will slow down. It's possible that you'll see a couple more persons get laid off, and it will affect our employment rate, as we would have seen after Hurricane Melissa, business will be closing down. So when these costs start to increase as it relates to input costs, for many businesses, it will slow down the economy because less purchases will be taking place, and in return, it might affect employment where some companies might not be able to pay those persons those wages that they require in order to survive, and we'll see a contraction in the economy as we would have seen in the previous reports. We would have seen a contraction in the economy. So that is what we'll continue to expect if it is that costs continue to rise and spending will slow down.
Some argue that Jamaica needs a livable wage instead of a minimum wage. What's the difference between the two?
So minimum wage is what we call a price floor. It's the lowest price that is legally allowed to be paid to employees. And a livable wage is a wage that we would say is one that is issued on the basis of the necessities that we need to survive. So we take into consideration transportation, we take into consideration housing, and other necessities that we need to survive. And then that wage now would come about approximately 25 to 30% above minimum wage based on research that would be done. So it would be a wage that would basically constitute or substitute for whatever the cost of living is. That wage is in alignment with cost of living condition rather than just a floor where they say, hey, this is the lowest amount we can pay legally.
So could these repeated increases in operating costs and consumer expenses contribute to economic slowdown or contraction?
Yes, as we would have seen that the slowdown will affect small, medium, and micro enterprises a lot because, for example, with fuel, you will find that with increasing fuel costs, you'll find that transportation costs affect largely a significant portion of the economy. And when small, medium, and micro enterprises, which are the backbone of the economy, start to experience these higher costs, what might happen is that they'll have to raise the prices of goods and services. And if it is that consumers can't afford it, what that will lead to is a reduction in sales or output, which will cause the economy to contract.
And wrapping up, before you go, Janelle, if the current economic pressures that we're seeing right now continue, what could be the long-term, not just economic, but also social consequences for regular Jamaicans like me and you?
Right, so one of the costs that we don't often take into consideration is the psychological cost. What this is doing to the average Jamaican, when we're not able to pay our bills, when we're not able to save and invest for our kids' future. This might affect generations to come. And if it is that we continue on a path where we can train our workers with the necessary skills in order to increase productivity and output, so that in return we can say, hey, we're coming to the table with a plausible argument to say that our productivity is high, our output is high, and our economy is growing. We deserve a wage that matches or reflects the conditions of the economy. Then the implication might last for generations, where we would have seen that we might be carrying over.
All right, it appears we're having some technical challenges there with Janelle, but we are entirely out of time. I do want to thank Janelle McEwen. That was Janelle McEwen, economist, for sharing with us this afternoon. Let's go now to news overseas, where Iranian drones have hit a terminal building in Kuwait on Wednesday, forcing the country to briefly close down its international airport, further testing the current ceasefire. According to the country's health ministry, the hit has left one person killed and at least 63 persons injured. More details from France 24.
A burning crater in the ground, a blown-out ceiling, smoke wafting throughout the terminal. On Wednesday, Iranian drones hit Kuwait's international airport. Authorities temporarily shut it down.